how's it going YouTube? Today's video is probably one of the most exciting ones yet because it really shows how there are just uniques out there that completely break the game. In some cases you have the double cast on crit thing with the Martyr of Innocence. Well, that does not really break the game, but this video footage here is me doing Delirium Tropical Island, which is pretty much the test for any build in my opinion, because Delirium Tropical Island is probably the hardest content in the game, as it's harder than 100% Delirium. And this is being done with one Chaos Claw. A lot of people have asked in the past, how do I craft the claws? Well, the sad answer is, or the simple fact of the matter is, the one Chaos Claw might even outperform the 600 or 580 DPS claw that I had. And it's a pretty old school claw, and people did use this for Frostblades a lot, but the clear is actually just crazy. It gives you +2 chains, and I'm going to go over the claw and what it actually is, and how you can actually even make shaper versions of these claws and probably have better damage. I will also showcase a Maven kill, which was actually just absurd for how fast the damage was for a 1 chaos unique claw, right? With an ability that is known to have horrific single target, right? The Frostblade, no one ever says like, oh, look at the single target, but right now I'm looking at the single target and it's usually pretty good. So it's actually pretty surprising. And now I die here because I don't have freeze immunity, or maybe I do too. But I'm going to go over the building gear overview, and then I'm going to introduce like pretty much what I think of a budget way of building this character, because the character is actually faster than Spectral Shield Throw. There's no other way of putting it. Spectral Shield Throw is not miles, but is noticeably slower than this build, purely because you don't have the whirling blade speed from Berserker Blitz charges. So let's just say I was very surprised with the performance of this build for how much I invested, or with the claws I was using. And I do think that people should actually try this build out. It's really fun. Having chain on your ability is a dream, and highly recommended. I will make a more detailed video guide about this once I fully flesh it out, because I pretty much just discovered this like not too long before I ended my stream. So I'm literally making this video right after I found out about this tech. So the sad part of the matter is, I can't really tell you that the Touch of Anguish is that good, because I personally have 1 claw, 2 claw, 3 claw, 4 claws, and it's even a white claw. But I need to sell these claws, so me saying that these new unique claws are actually almost better kind of pains my soul, because I have literally almost 1.5 or 2 meters in claws, or like 1 meter in claws at least. So me saying this is not me. It's a lot easier for me to just say these claws are bad and you shouldn't use it, but the claws are actually just that good, and I want to tell everyone, even if it costs me a mirror, because who's gonna buy these claws now? The rare claws. The rare claws are not that bad. Oh wait, I can't keep saying that. The rare claws are not that bad. But anyhow, let's get straight into the gear overview. So we have Touch of Anguish. This is where the magic happens. It's around like 280 PDPS perfectly rolled, so if you can buy a perfectly rolled one, it'd be very good. So I think after this video releases, people are probably going to buy it up, or at least the perfect rolled ones. So you can get Trash to Treasure and actually chance it that way if you want to get a shaper one, and you can actually be fully shaped, which is probably brings the DPS a lot closer. And this claw pretty much just gives you +1 chain when you're at max frenzy charges. So if you have Blood Rage up, you'll have maximum frenzy charges that you'll be chaining. And it also has pretty good crit. The only problem is that the attack speed is kind of low, and your crit strikes do not inherently freeze anymore. So that means you have a 10% chance to freeze. So the mods will still freeze, but not as consistently as before. And it also means that Herald of Ice won't get the explosions anymore. So Herald of Ice is pretty much there right now as a temporary aura until I find something better. So you could probably run something else besides Herald of Ice, like summon Skitterbots or something for bossing. So the rest of the gear is the same. I didn't really buy any upgrades. Oh, I bought this ring for like, I think 2 exalts. And this is pretty much just a life mana ring with some resist and assassin smart. You can probably make this pretty easily if you just use Reforged Caster and try to hit it, but getting obviously the T1 life and the T1 cold spells and attacks is kind of lucky. So basically, if you want to craft a ring like this, you want to just keep reforging. I will go into the crafting a little bit later in the next section, because I wanted to just give a brief overview of how to craft most of this stuff. So the Eternity Shroud 6 links the same. I was trying to look for a +1 max res or +2 proj, but they don't really exist, the +2 proj. +1 gems would also be pretty good. So here we have the gloves. I haven't really divined it that much, so it's still pretty much 2 additional strikes. Here's the ring. Same ring, lots of resist. Try to get T1 wed on the ring, and then pretty much have as much life as possible. I did use attack catalyst on these, and then life catalyst on this one. And then here we have a Stygian, Shaper Stygian with a lot of resist. The Chaos Rest is not really that high, but mainly you want to have high life, a lot of resist, and then have an open prefix to craft on increase elemental damage with attacks. So here is the boots. Now these boots are pretty much just increased effective tailwind boost, nothing really special about it. I think the person that Awakened Orbed it together with chance to avoid elemental ailments, and then they pretty much just get life on it, and then have cannot be chilled, and they just got lucky with the either Veiled Chaos Orb or Ashling Exalt. So overall, oh yeah, then we have the helm. You could use 30% increased Berserk buff effect. I do think it's probably the best one, as it gives us the most damage on PoE Ninja, and it gives us the burst we need to quickly take down bosses, so I really like it. Now, you could probably make this helm relatively cheap if you just stuck to a non-shaper helm, and pretty much just reforge cold until you see nearby enemies have cold res, and then you get craft life on it. Like, most of this gear is craftable pretty cheap, and all of your difference is just going to be missing 1 mod of damage or something on it. Now, the flasks are pretty mandatory. If you're bossy, you probably want to have Aziri's Promise. If you have really good clear speed, you could probably drop the Overflowing Chalice and run an Onslaught Flask. I currently do not have a way to get Onslaught, and I'm trying to fix it. So the tree, nothing really changed about the tree. Mainly, I pretty much just prioritize attack speed over everything else. So you can see I have attack speed with Claws Jewels. Oh, the one thing I did was I added 2 of these clusters in with pressure points and quick getaway. So there's another one, pressure point. So I dropped these 2 nodes here that you get, because these nodes are just less efficient overall than taking a cluster. And you also get 5% movement speed from quick getaway. So you can see there's not really that much more access to life for this build easily. So you have this point here for life, and then you're pretty capped out on life. You could probably get more life maybe here, but wait, these nodes change everything, so probably not. So right here's life. That's pretty much it, right, for life. And then you could technically drop a jewel socket and use Fetto if you wanted to get above like 5.2k life, and that's pretty much just a trade-off of like life versus damage. Now the build is actually very, very tanky purely because of all the leech we get for the claws. I was actually able to take like the Maven beam or whatever the little attack is just by leeching through it. A lot of times you think you're gonna die, but this is like old school Volpact. With all the leech from the claws and your Volpact going on, you can pretty much almost leech back like more than half your life every attack that you do. So don't be afraid to stand still and attack. As long as you don't take a slam and get one-shotted, you will probably live no matter what. So now I'm going to talk about how to craft most of this gear and the budget options so that anyone can play this with any budget. So a lot of people, before I get to budget crafting, a lot of people ask me why Berserker. Then they're asking me like, why not Raider, right? The simple fact of the matter is Berserker gets 40% more attack speed and 40% more damage from this node. If you take this entire tree on Pob and change it over to a Berserker. So here is a, let's see, can we actually do it? Let's see, Berserker is right here, right? So Berserker with everything, oh, you don't have this. So here you have to put in the rage, right? Basically, Berserker is so much more damage. Berserker's 23 mil damage, right? Then you change it to Raider. Now this is all the same tree. A Raider, this is what people take. 12 million damage. It's half damage. You also don't get the increased attack rate. So attack rate is 18.33. And what's the Berserker with it? I think the Berserker gets 26.47. And this attack rate is also your leech rate, right? So this is how much you're able to leech back because of how many times you attack. So if you attack 26 times a second, and then you have around like 100 life per hit, that's 2600 life per hit, and then you get this much from Volpack, like 20% of your life per second, which is almost like maximum recovery rate because of all of the claw leech stuff you have. So that means you're almost leeching up your full HP pool per second when you berserk and have maximum attack speed. So that's why Berserker is just miles better. It has double the damage. It has insane leech potential, and it feels a lot faster to play in maps because you have insane rolling blade attack speed. I can probably whirl across an entire tropical island with Berserk up in like 3 seconds or so, or like from one end to the cave. So that's pretty much why you choose Berserker. Now, Berserker is, you might think the tree is like really inefficient, but it's actually not that bad. You just sacrifice a little bit of points to travel to the duelist section, and then if you're playing Raider, you'll probably come down here anyhow to get the Jewel Socket and Fangs of Frost. And then these points here are pretty much just 2 points to get the Jewel Socket. So overall, in terms of point efficiency, I don't think the tree is that bad. You're pretty much picking up something everywhere along the way. And all the travel is not that bad. I mean, this part I was just using to test out how bad Assassin was. And let me tell you, Assassin is pretty bad. Like, you do not want to be an Assassin. Raider is actually not too bad. It is tankier. This build does have around 200k EHP for elemental damage. So, because EHP accounts for leech and dodge. So basically, that's just the answer for why Berserker over Raider. However, you can play the build as a Raider. The single target will be a lot worse, and the single target is where the build struggles. Or like, it's not struggles, it's the weak point of the build. So that's why you want Berserker to be able to carry the single target where you have a little worse gear, because not everyone's going to have as good of rares as these. And now on the topic of rares, I wanted to talk about how you can craft most of these pieces. So Eternity Shroud is just a chest a lot of people use because it's just a lot of free damage. And if you can get shaped pieces, that's pretty good, right? It pretty much gives you 5% extra of elemental damage, extra chaos damage. So basically, a lot of these pieces don't exist on the market. So what you have to do is you have to Awaken Orbit. And you could drop the Shaper influence on a lot of these pieces and the build will still have fine damage. So for instance, this piece, you can just Maven Orb and get 2 strike additional nearby enemies. So you pretty much just save the cost of the Maven Orb every time you do it. And then you could probably buy gear that's like pretty good. So you can just get a strike 1 additional nearby enemies, and then Maven Orbit to get 2 additional, and then just wear it and just forget about the Shaper influence for now. Now, rings like these, I would probably just buy. You could probably just look up for any search for T1 Wed, some Resist and Life, and Shaper if possible. So this ring is like not too crazy. I think I bought it for 1x or so. And this is the same thing. You can have a Shaper ring in your stash, and you can run Harvest, and you can just do a Reforge Life, Reforge Attack, and this is like Reforge Caster or Reforge Cold until you get something like this. And it's actually like not that crazy to hit. If you run a lot of Harvest, you will see it sooner or later. A lot of this stuff is just Harvest crafted. Like this is like Reforge Cold or Reforge Life or Reforge Crit. And you sooner or later you're gonna hit it. This is a piece of gear you can buy. And this item is actually kind of common to buy compared to the other ones because there's a lot of people who try to... This is a Spectral Shield Throw amulet because they want life and gains physics extra cold. So this amulet is probably not too bad to buy. I don't really know how much I bought this one for. I think 5x or so, but pretty much you don't really need it because it was only so expensive because of the int. And back then, because I was not playing Claw, I was int starved. Claw is actually a lot better on int because you go up here and you get some free int. So that's why I have 54 int on the amulet. Because right now my int is actually 155. So you actually don't need that much int. You only need 90 to wear the Eternity Shroud. And I guess some for the Crit Strikes gem. And this claw... So the claws, you don't need to craft the 500, 600 DPS claws. You can just use Touch of Anguish. And Touch of Anguish is actually crazy. It's really fun to play. And the +2 chains honestly makes it feel better than the rare claws for clearing. And I'm not just saying that because I want the build to be cheaper, but I actually believe it is true. And our single target is not as bad as you may think it is, because that means that since you attack the Hydra Spear and the boss, the blades can chain back and forth, right? So you get an extra like hit with the blades due to how the interaction works. Or I think so. I'm not 100% sure on that, but the single target honestly felt fine. Once you see the footage with these claws, you'll be like, are you really using these claws in this video? And the helm, it will probably be a lot more expensive to try to craft Shaper. So ideally, if you want a Shaper and -9 cold res, what you would do is you would awaken orb nearby enemies have -9 cold res, and nearby enemies have take additional elemental damage, and those would be your suffixes. And so this helm is not like perfect at all by any stretch of the imagination. And if you could craft it, you would probably do it on a Blizzard Crown. Now for this helm right now, if you want to go a cheap option, you would probably just reforge cold on any like evasion based helmet with Berserk effect, and you have to enchant already, so you don't need to worry about the enchant later on. And Panopticon is the best enchant, and this one is actually not even that expensive for the Anoint Right. So overall, most of the gear you can craft yourself through Harvest or Essences. This one you could probably just spam some life or like some resist essence like Chaos Res and hope that you can hit something. But this belt is pretty expensive. Just the base alone for Shaper Stygian is a lot. So if you wanted to go cheaper, you could not use Shaper. So a lot of the stuff is expensive because of Shaper, right? This boots is really expensive because of elevated Tailwind. You could probably use regular Tailwind and not a Shaper boots. And a lot of times that you might be wondering, why am I even using Eternity Shroud in the end? And the fact of the matter is, Eternity Shroud is better even with just like a couple shaped items, and is better damage than almost any other chest. Unless you could probably get yourself on an additional curse chest, and then I could see there being a comparison, maybe additional curse and plus crit. But Eternity Shroud has the best end game potential, especially now that you can use the Touch of Anguish claws, and you use Trash to Treasure on Imperial claws to get a Shaper base. Touch of Anguish, the build is actually insane, so Eternity Shroud is actually a viable option again, so that's why I would go for Eternity Shroud, because of the upgrade potential. And this build's pretty fun, right? You could eventually upgrade all your items to Shaped, and it will look very pretty on your screen, and it'll also be a good chase build, because you could have so many things to upgrade. And it's kind of like the Aura Stacker, except not as crazy. There's not as many cluster jewels to get. And most of these jewels are pretty much like 10, 20 seed, life, and double attack speed. You can just search it up. This jewel is really expensive. Blanket of Snow. This is a 10x jewel, right? But this jewel is actually more damage on POB. And this one is like 1x or so. 1 to 2x, I think. So you can get these two. So you replace this one with the Leech. The reason why this is so strong is because it has conditionals like 30% increased damage while leeching and 15% increased attack speed while leeching. And because of the Glorious Vanity Immortal Ambition jewel, we are always leeching back. Even if we're at full life, the leech effect does not get removed. So that's why, even though it seems like a conditional, it's pretty much on 24/7. And on the topic of the Watcher's Eye, this is a 40x Watcher's Eye, but I'm not even using Vitality anymore. So just Hatred Crit alone is like 9x, so it's not the most expensive Watcher's Eye in the world anymore. I dropped Vitality because you get so much life back already from the claws, and then I actually couldn't afford to run Vitality anymore because I actually figured out a pretty cool trick in that if you have multiple, so you can have 2 totems up if one is Ancestral, a Vol totem. So what I do is I use 2 totems now, Ancestral Protector for general, which gives you more attack speed, and then I use Vol Ancestral War Chief when it's up. So you can have Vol Ancestral War Chief and Ancestral Protector up, even if you only have a 1 totem limit, as long as you use a Vol version of 1 totem. So that's pretty much all of the gear crafting, right? You buy all of this jewels, and then you have 2 Fight for Survivals. You can get Corrupted Blood really cheap on it. So that means you don't need to worry about buying an expensive CB life jewel. And besides that, these medium clusters are probably 1x each or so, maybe a little 1.4x maybe, depending on the suffixes on it. But you don't need to get like Pressure Points Quick Getaway. There's probably combinations that's cheaper. And you could also just always take points on a tree. They're a little less efficient. Like these nodes are all very good over here, and these nodes right here. So these are slightly better on POP, but you don't really need to have the best, right, to have the clear speed. So what this means is that this actually ended up being a relatively budget build by all standards. Like you can wear gear that's like, it's expensive, right? It's still, the build's probably like still 10, 15x bare minimum, right? And that doesn't include the Flask of the Bottle of Faith. The Bottle of Faith is kind of an annoying part for a build budget nowadays because it's 17 exalts, right? So the Bottle of Faith alone would probably cost more than all this gear put together if you could, like obviously the gear I have is more expensive than 17x because the boots alone are like 20x because of the elevated tailwind. But if you just all craft the budget stuff that I recommended just now, it would probably be less. The Bottle of Faith would be less than all of this gear put together. And that's just the sad part about how expensive Bottle of Faith is. I don't really know why it's so expensive, or less people are just doing the feared, but this flask alone would cost more than all of the gear put together. So just beware about that. But Bottle of Faith is not like, it's the best flask in the game, but it's not like completely game breaking like it used to be. So you can probably live without it and play without it. And at this point, most people have Bottle of Faiths, as it is one of the first upgrades that most people get, as you can use it on so many builds. So hopefully that helps everyone with the crafting. So the rings and jewelry, you gotta try to harvest, craft, or buy, and everything else you can reforge cold or just buy it. So, or harvest, crafted. The main thing you want to keep in mind, strikes 2 additional enemies is really strong. So strikes 1 is fine, and you could probably anoint Tribal Fury on here. But if you can try to have the budget to gamble on the Maven Orb, it's definitely worthwhile trying to get 2 additional nearby enemies on the gloves.
Choppers, better took those risks. Cold blood in my fists, we fire starters. Let's go. One out of a million will reach those heights. Always had a feeling that I won't deny that work. Never could toss. Look at my eyes, I'm on the rise.
ricochet. I see the sparks you throw my way. I know your name is written on everyone's mind. Your whole show is captivating me, but don't think that I can see right through that disguise. But when you got close to me, you had me falling so hard, baby, yeah, now I get it. You got heads turning, and you don't even try. Well, would you look at that? My glass is empty, glass empty. How about I get another drink, baby, okay, I get it. You got fire burning, right there in your eyes. So when you got this whole thing, I like the way you look at me. How about we just go with the flow? Now you know I feel it too. But I don't think this could be something that becomes a thing. Maybe just for tonight, then I'll be over you. But when you got close to me, you had me falling so hard, baby, yeah, now I get it. You got heads turning, and you don't even try. Well, would you look at that? My glass is empty, how about I get another drink, baby, okay, I get it. You got fire burning, right there in your eyes. Oh yeah.
I hope everyone enjoyed all the bossing footage and mapping clear of Frostblades with a touch of English claws. It's actually crazy. 1 chaos claws, right? Actually 1 chaos claws. I didn't even use 30 quality on these claws. And they're not even shaper. So it's actually just crazy to me that it's actually better than my 550 DPS claws for doing Tropical Island. Like I can't even wrap my mind around it. How I didn't really waste. I'm going to sell these claws. I'm going to sell these claws. It's actually crazy how these claws might outperform it. I'm pretty sure it will outperform it if it's shaped in 30 quality, but we'll see what happens. So if you're interested, be sure to tune into my stream. It's been a fun time trying out different builds beside the Aura Stacker. I think this is actually a pretty game-changing build because it's probably one of the cheapest builds to do Tropical Island Delirium, in my opinion. And you're literally using 1 chaos items and having clear and survivability too, because of the insta leech from all of the life gain on hit from the claws and Vault Pact. And you have the survivability to do it better than my Aura Stacker did it when he had like 2-3 mirrors worth of gear. And without Headhunter, like the number of builds that can do 100% or like Tropical Island turn Zen, which is harder than 100% Deli with no Headhunter on is really low this league. And if you know any, please let me know down below because I just wanted to try it out and see what I can do with those builds. But thanks for watching, everyone. I do hope you tried this build out. I actually wholly recommend it now, especially now you don't need to worry about crafting some 600-700 DPS claws. But technically you could use the rare claws to use the Awaken Chain gem and it might be better, but I'll try that out tomorrow. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more mirrors and exalts than I do, and see you next time. Bye.